Welcome to the Berry Tramel Show. I'm coming to you from the Blue Room in the state capitol. We've got a very distinguished guest this week. But first I want to thank our sponsors, 39's Technology, Weedman Lawn Service, Next Generation Roofing, Oklahoma Ford Dealers Association, and Oklahoma 988 Helpline. And now let's get to our guest, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt. Well, Governor, thanks for letting us join you. It's an honor. To me, it's an honor to walk into the Capitol for any reason, but to walk in and share some time with you, talking about some sports issues and sports memories. So thanks for letting us barge in.
Absolutely. We've got a beautiful Capitol. Actually, some people from I think it was South Dakota came in. They're wanting to redo their Capitol and coming down to kind of take a look at ours. So it's really, really pretty, and we're just honored to have you. I've obviously followed your career for a long time growing up in Norman, and it's just cool to get to hang out with you for a little bit.
Well, it's full disclosure. I covered Norman High School football for a full decade. My last year on the beat, 1989, was your junior year, playing defensive end and some tight end for the Tigers.
That's right.
And 89 was not a great year for Norman. That's for the decade, it was not the best of years. But the next year, I was gone from covering Norman High, but you guys had another good year. So I certainly remember Kevin Stitt, the football player, and then all of a sudden you're running for governor. I said, hey, I know who that is. So I wanted to talk some football with you. We're coming to you 3 days after Bedlam. One of the perks of the job is you get to go to a lot of cool events. A lot of them involve a ball. Saturday, you got to present that Bedlam trophy to Mike Gundy. How is the perks of the job? Getting to go to cool events, football games, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. I mean, there's so many cool things you don't realize when you become governor, and you get to represent your state in Washington, D.C., and you know, I've met President Trump and met President Biden, and then obviously the sporting, as a huge sports fan and a guy that grew up in Oklahoma, been able to go to OU Texas every year, and I'm 4-1, by the way, on the OU Texas rivalry, and so I like to rub that in on Governor Abbott. But being on the field, and then obviously after being an Oklahoma State grad, I had my two sons with me, and I was like, hey, we're going to go to the locker room after this. And so I went down there, and man, I took a video. I was like like all those kids. I was watching them dance, and it was so fun. And then Gundy was just, they were super excited because obviously normally OSU's on the other end of that series, but they got the better of OU on Saturday, and it was a good game.
Well, you happen to be the governor. Can you do something about this Bedlam going away part? Can you get the rivalry renewed?
You know, I mean, we certainly probably could. I know down in Florida, they actually passed a law where Florida and Florida State, when they went to separate conferences, would play every year. And that's something that's on the table. But at the same sense, I understand how hard it is to get to a national championship game, and having another tough non-conference game every year could be problematic for both schools. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited about OU going to the SEC. You know, it's going to be, you're going to have LSU coming to town, and Alabama and Florida, and so that's going to be a lot of fun, and traveling to those different schools. And I told OSU this is their chance to be the bellwether cow of a new conference, and man, it looks like a solidified conference now with the Arizona schools and Colorado coming in, and so I'm really excited as a sports fan. I think it's really a good opportunity for both programs.
When you look back over, you know, you haven't played high school football 30-something years, but it clearly was a big part of your life growing up. How important was football? How did it shape you? What are the values you learned from putting on the shoulder pads?
You know, that's a great question. I haven't had people ask me that, but it certainly shaped me. Being in the locker room with the guys, and I remember Cotton Wade used to tell us, you know, I remember all these things that Cotton Wade would tell us, but, you know, it takes discipline and hard work to play football and go through two-a-days from your sophomore, junior, and senior year when you're the underclassman and you're getting beat up and you're learning to be part of a team. And work together, and the rewards of those Friday night football games and playing in front of your high school friends and all your families out there. So just tremendously fun memories. It was great. Also, I remember during a scrimmage, our preseason game, I got hit and fumbled, and Cotton Wade, he used to tell us, it'd be better to die as a baby than fumble the football. That was his saying, and I hope he's probably listening, so I don't want to get him in trouble. But he had so many great sayings in life, and so we never fumbled again after that one. Yeah. It was just so many great memories. Brian Roberts, I know his sons are big-time tight ends right now down at Washington. I played with Brian, and he went on to play at Marshall, and then Todd Donnan was our quarterback. So lifelong memories, lifelong friends, but it does teach you hard work, discipline, and being part of a team.
Just in chatting, you've mentioned Cotton Wade twice. You know, I met Cotton Wade in 1981 when he was hired as the Norman coach, but when I look back over my life, I can remember things a coach said to me literally 50-something years ago.
Yeah.
And you come from a great family. You clearly have had success in business, politics, met a lot of people, but you still remember things that a coach said to you when you were 11, 14, 17. What do you think that is? And, and how much have coaches meant to you and your experience?
Yeah, you know, my senior year, we had our offensive coordinator came in, and man, his name is escaping me. I think he was the coach that had polio. He had his, you know who I'm talking about?
Ron Taylor.
Ron Taylor.
Ron Taylor.
And Ron Taylor, and he said something to me. He was in the weight room as we were doing squats, and he said, he goes, "You can be the best tight end in the state of Oklahoma." And it's something, just that confidence that a coach speaking to you, and I've just always carried that with me, that your words matter. And now as governor, I get the chance to put my hand on the shoulder of an 8th grader and say, "Hey, are you going to be governor someday?" And you can do it. You can do anything you set your mind to. And so the confidence that those coaches give you, and just being able to speak those words of affirmation, mean a lot. And so here I am. I was, you know, probably 17 at the time, and that coach said something to me in the off season, and it really made me want to be better, want to play for him, and want to achieve. And so those things are something, like you said, you can remember 50 years from now something those coaches say to you.
You know, growing up in Norman, you grew up in the 80s. What are your memories of growing up in Norman in that time? And of course, you ended up at OSU. Growing up in the 80s, though, it was a great time for Oklahoma football. What was it like growing up in Norman in the 80s?
Oh, man, I mean, going by Owen Field, and as a kid, you know, I'm friends with the Owens family, and Mikey Owens and Blake and Brandy Owens, Tinker's daughter. She was my age, and so I remember going over to the field to a birthday party or driving around and seeing the stadium, which was really cool. And then obviously I was in 7th grade when the Boz came on the scene, and everybody had flat tops, and we had our haircuts like Boz. And I'm on the school bus there on Main Street, and Boz pulls up in his white Jeep, and all of us boys on the school bus, you know, we're just like screaming out the window for the Boz, and then seeing him at the new movie theater around town. So those football players were bigger than life. And then Keith Jackson came and spoke. My dad was a pastor there in town, came and spoke at our youth group. And I just thought that was, I had died and gone to heaven being able to hang out and meet Keith Jackson, the great tight end for Oklahoma. So great memories. Lydell Carr went over, Keith Jackson took us back over to the dorms there. So we see Lydell Carr, we see all these great players. And then being friends with Todd Donnan. Now Barry Switzer's kids, they'd got a divorce and they'd moved on. But we knew him, we knew Barry's sons back when they were much younger, 2nd, 3rd grade, and then they moved back to Arkansas. But the Proctor, Bobby Proctor, and those guys, they were friends more with my brother. But just being around the program, we obviously were just die hard and living and breathing, and with all of our friends. I remember those Miami Orange Bowls where we lost like 2 or 3 in a row. Otherwise, we'd have won a couple more national championships. Yeah. Just remember just hating Miami because they had our number.
They were
there.
Easy to hate.
They were easy to hate back in the day with those good players that they had.
You, of course, grew up in Norman in the glory days of OU football. You go to Stillwater, you go to Oklahoma State University. Turned out great for you. Not the best time to be an OSU football fan, early 90s, your years in Stillwater. Did you maintain your passion for football while you were on campus at Oklahoma State?
You know, not really. I mean, when I showed up in Stillwater, and I just wanted to get away from home, didn't want to go to school in the same hometown I grew up in, and both my parents met at OSU. They went to Oklahoma State. So I went up there, and we were 0-11-1, I think, my freshman year in Stillwater. So pretty much you could walk into the game anytime, and it was totally empty. So I didn't really follow it much. I was really more of an OU fan, would follow OU, of course, back then. And then once you know, your alma mater, then you just start rooting for your alma mater, I think, more after you graduate from college. And then we had, you know, Simmons came in and did some good things, and then Les Miles years. But Gundy's really kind of turned this program around, and we, you know, it was a big deal for Oklahoma State to go to a bowl game, as you know. Right. And then now it's just Gundy's got them going and got them believing, and he's done a really good job for the last, I don't know how long he's been there, 18 years or so.
Yep. What is the value of sports and football to the state of Oklahoma? Clearly it's an obsession for the state. It's an economic driver. It's a source of pride. It's a lot of things. When you think about football in the state of Oklahoma, what comes to your mind?
Yeah, I mean, it is. It gives us a confidence. There's a lot of people that we don't have a pro football team here, and just recently got the Thunder. But it is a sense of pride. It's getting behind your college team and rooting for them, and the success that Oklahoma's had over the decades with Bud Wilkinson and Barry Switzer and Bob Stoops. The tradition that they've had has just been amazing. And so it does give us a lot of sense of pride as we have, you know, been able to dominate, and you know, Texas does a lot of things well, but we've really been able to dominate them in football. And I love to remind Texas fans, even their stadium, the Darrell K. Royal Stadium, is an Oklahoma boy.
Yep, Hollis, America.
That's right, Hollis, Oklahoma. So a lot of bragging rights there, and of course, you know, pastimes and sports and tailgating, coming back to college campuses where you have all these great memories shaping with your friends. You know, we were just in Stillwater and had a whole group of people, both OU and OSU, where our kids go to school now, and we had a big tailgate before the game in Stillwater. And then my other buddy Hobie had his 50th birthday, a fraternity brother of mine, and it's just a great time. I mean, Saturdays in the fall in Oklahoma, rooting for your team. It's just there's nothing better than college football. I mean, there was 2 guys from Connecticut that showed up at our tailgate.
Oh, really?
That they just pick a game every year, and they came because that's a big rivalry. The Bedlam, it was the last one, and so I met a couple guys from Connecticut, just huge college football fans that love to travel the country and go see other games.
All right, I'm going to take you back in time about 37, I think it's 37 years. One of your former teammates sent me this story from your middle school days at Longfellow Middle School. The big Whittier-Longfellow rivalry, which doesn't sound like Bedlam, but I can tell you in the 70s, the middle school rivalries in Norman were a big deal. I assume it was the same in the 80s. You're playing football.
Yep.
Fourth quarter. 0-0 game, which is not uncommon for middle school football. Not a lot of sophisticated offenses.
That's right.
And the Whittier Warriors decide to break the tie by trying a field goal. And didn't seem like a good idea when I heard the story. Middle school kicking's not sophisticated, but turns out the Warriors had a pretty good kicker. Scott Blanton, who went on to kick for the Sooners, kick it for the Washington, now Commanders of the National Football League. So I can see why they would try it.
Yep.
They snapped the ball for the field goal. Not great blocking, not great technique, not great functionality. And a certain defensive end for Longfellow gets such a jump that he beats Scott Blanton to the ball. He beat the kicker to the ball, kicked the ball himself, going the other direction, went and picked it up and ran the other way. Longfellow beats Whittier 6-0 by kicking the other team's field goal. That defensive end is now the governor of the state of Oklahoma. Do you remember that play, and how did you ever kick another team's field goal?
Hey, not only do I remember the play, but it's sad to say that you were talking about an 8th grade sporting event instead of like some high school where I'm scoring a touchdown. But I totally remember the play, and you're right. I mean, it was a big rivalry. We had the the rivalries across town, Whittier versus Longfellow, and so we have the cheerleaders on the Whittier. We all like the cheerleader, the girls at Whittier, and they all and the Longfellow, et cetera, back and forth. Scotty Blanton was a great kicker, as you know, played in the pros. They had a chip shot field goal like on the 5-yard line. And I remember this like it's yesterday. They called a timeout. They came out. This is another lesson you learn in sports. Came out, and our coach came out, and he said, we got to block this. You got to block it. Well, for some reason, I just got it in my head, I am going to block this kick. And, you know, life is like that. It's a mental, you've got to just make that switch. And so I just said, I'm going to block the kick. And I watched the ball. As soon as it snapped, I busted through the line. I got that back there so fast that the holder was putting it down on the tee. And Blanton hadn't got up there, and I'm like, what do I do? So I kicked it the other way. The guy was holding it, picked it up, ran it 95 yards. The team carried me off on their shoulders, and you know, we were victorious for that game. So a lot of fun. We've got it. I've got it on. My mom's got it on video somewhere, so we'll have to pull it out on a beta tape.
All right. Kicking the ball and scoring the winning touchdown in the Longfellow Whittier game. How does that rank with election night 2018? Which was the bigger thrill?
Oh man, probably election night. Election night. There's nothing like it. I mean, as an Oklahoma boy, 4th generation Oklahoma. My granddad, one of my granddads was the head vet at Oklahoma City Stockyards. The other one was a dairy farmer in Skytook, Oklahoma. Just a normal kid that just raised my hand and said, hey, I want to change my state. I want to run for governor, and I had no political experience. And then to come out of nowhere and win it, it was an amazing feeling. And then the next morning when you wake up governor, you know, you just pinch yourself. You ask your wife, you just can't believe you're waking up in the governor's mansion. And but anything is possible in America. Anything's possible when you work hard and you do the right thing. You put the right team together and you go execute a game plan. And so same things we do in sports. We put the same team together and executed. You know, there's a pathway to becoming governor. There's a pathway to becoming a doctor or a lawyer or a business person or a teacher. And that's what I try to share with young people is, you know, your future can be super bright. You can just put a plan together and then you go execute on that plan. And there's a lot of days where you have to work really hard and go through 2-a-days or go through school. But it's always worth it when you complete your task and you finish and you work hard. And you know, sometimes you don't win them all. And I was fortunate to win my first election. But it doesn't mean we don't try. And the journey is so worth it. The people I met across the state, even if I didn't win, it was worth it to put myself out there and to try to you know, shape the conversation about our state.
Let's talk about a couple of recent initiatives. You have recently proclaimed November as Family Month in Oklahoma, including some deals waiving the fees at state parks, getting restaurants involved. Tell us about why it's important to try to get the family to do things together, particularly as it maybe relates to the state parks.
Yeah, so that initiative came from our team. We know the statistics and how many kids are growing up without fathers right now. And so we really have an initiative for, hey guys, fathers are so important. Kids need their moms and their dads. So we're trying to promote the family unit because we know that healthy kids and kids get their value a lot of times from their fathers. They might get their values from their mothers, but they get their value from their fathers. And so just trying to talk about it. We didn't see a lot of people talking about that nationally and how important it is when we have 2 engaged parents, you know, focused on raising their children and giving them the best opportunities possible. And so we just wanted to promote that and let people know, hey, it's okay to talk about this. It's okay to talk about healthy families. And then when we got our parks and our restaurants involved, they wanted to be a part of it. And what's more family than sitting around? We've got Thanksgiving coming up, but going and, you know, taking your wife to a restaurant and taking your kids. That's all part of our heritage here in Oklahoma. And then the parks. Taking your son camping. We all have great memories of camping with our families, and if we don't, we want you to go make those memories. So we think spending that intentional time with kids is so important. Most kids are spending 44 hours a week on a cell phone or a tablet, and less than 30 minutes a week with a one-on-one conversation with their father, for example. So we all get busy. But just having the governor and the family focus this week, hopefully people will say, hey, it just kind of makes you think about it and just think about, hey, let's go spend a little extra time with our son or our daughter.
Another thing, just last week you unveiled a new plan for sports betting. It's going to have to go through the legislative channels, but what do you like about your new sports betting plan?
Yeah, I'm kind of excited about it. It's a fair proposal that's kind of a free market proposal. So in other words, I studied what 35 other states have already done, and we've got the ability to look at that because they've already rolled it out in their states. And what was fair? What should the fees be? How should you set it up? So we did two things. We did two different licenses. One, we've got 130 casinos, and so we thought, hey, let's make sure that they have the ability to do a retail sports book. So you walk into their casinos and you want to go bet on a game, you can go do that in their casinos. And then, but we also said it's important to have mobile sports book, and that's a different license, and we wanted that just to be a free market. So in other words, FanDuel could apply for a license, or DraftKings, or the Thunder, or a local business person, or a casino could operate mobile. But the mobile's a little different because it's statewide mobile. It's going to be transparent. It pays the state a 20% fee, which is about average. New York actually collects 50% fee on their mobile sports book, and so we thought 20% would be good, and we just opened it up. We thought, well, we could limit it to just 2 or 3 licenses, but we thought, let's let the free market work. And so if a casino wants to operate one, or the Thunder, or DraftKings, they can come apply for a license, and the best marketing plan, best business plan, the best company is going to win ultimately. Or maybe there may be 2 or 3, and you may download the app that you like the best, and I might use a different one, which is fine. And then you just let the free market work. So we think it's a good system. Legislature, all they have to do is pass this in February or March, put it on my desk, and we turn this into law.
Any concerns about the sports betting? I know people are concerned about the addiction of young people and those things. It's also so prevalent that if Oklahoma doesn't pass it, it's really not going to stop anything. But any safeguards or concerns you might have?
You know, that was part of the reason in some of my compact negotiations. Most other states have a gambling addiction fund, so part of the fees that the state gets would be for gambling addiction. But to your point, people are already gambling. It's already legal in our state. People are going out of state to do it. So, but should we have some kind of fund for some gambling addiction? Yes. We need to make sure that it's done appropriately. But it's already out there. The legislature, if they wanted to remove all gaming from Oklahoma, they could pass the law and do that. So I think we do need to be cautious of it. But to your point, it's already being done out there. The other thing I think that in my plan I want to be protective of is college athletes. So after meeting with OU and OSU over the last few years, we decided to pull out those prop bets, because that can put a lot of pressure if I'm betting that the OSU field goal kicker is going to miss a field goal. So we took those out of this plan, which we think that's a safety measure, and I think that's something that the NCAA really needs to address. I believe they're going to come out with some guidance on sportsbook, which will be really important. But that's kind of how the plan works, and we think it could be up to $100 million for education. Then the legislature can determine where that money goes, whether it's to gambling addiction or it's to education or a little bit to each.
Well, Governor, this has been great. This has been fun. I've been wanting to do this a long time, and 1989 was a long time ago. We've both traveled quite a few miles since then, but I still remember those Friday nights at Harv Collins Field, and certainly continued success for you.
Thank you so much. It's an honor, and success to you as well. And I know Oklahoma sports fans have been following you for a long time, so we appreciate you.
Well, thanks. Hope to see you soon at the Big 12 Championship game, or one or maybe even 2 of the major bowls.
Absolutely.
Thanks a lot. Hey, appreciate you joining us. Remember, you can find us on all the Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, all the places you get your podcast. Get on there and subscribe. We will talk to you next week on the Berry Tramel Show.